Hello YouTube. Now I got that light up there next to the other one. Kind of got me thinking. Wonder if there's a way I can modify the other one to kind of make it to where I can put LEDs inside that one to where it'll I can run it off that same flasher or my other flasher to make it to where I can run them both like that and not have to worry about it. Because even though it does work with those other bulbs, the problem is those other bulbs take so much power and so much draw that one, I'm pretty sure if I left it on for a super length of time, it probably would eventually burn up that flasher box too. You can actually hear my breaker box, kind of buzz a little bit when those bulbs kick on. That's how much they take. They're like a 620-watt bulb. So I'm thinking of some different ways. One is kind of sort of do the same thing where I'm just going to make a socket. Maybe I'll find a way to just kind of hang the socket in there because I kind of don't want to take all the original guts out of it. I like to just kind of leave all that stuff in place because the light is pretty much all original with no modifications done to it. Just find a way to maybe put them in there, just run a new set of wires down to where I can hook them to themselves. And then if I want to put the original bulbs back in, I'll just remove all that stuff and go that route. So I'm just kind of thinking of a few different ways. So first I'm going to get this down off the shelf, get it on the workbench, and kind of get started on it. All right, well, with typical me fashion, and what I mean by that is sometimes I tend to find the hardest path or the longest road possible to achieve something on one of my projects instead of just taking, the easiest path. And the reason I'm saying that on this particular one is I'm kind of looking into the future. If, say, for some reason down the road I decide I don't want, my little conversion thing I did, I want to put the bulbs back in there. Or say, like, I actually sell the light and the new owner doesn't want all that stuff I put in there and they want to put these back in. Well, when I do this conversion, what I was going to be doing is obviously I was going to be making my little light sockets, the whole 9 yards. I was going to run new wires all the way down to the bottom, the whole 9 yards, which is perfectly fine because I'm essentially reassembling everything and putting the filters back in the whole 9 yards. Well, if you ever wanted to convert it back, it's going to be a little bit of a pain, a little bit of a chore because in order to get to all those wires, rehook up the original light sockets, the whole 9 yards, you're going to have to remove the filters, all that kind of stuff, so you can get inside there. And obviously, every time you move those filters or take them in and out the whole 9 yards, you run the risk of dropping them, breaking them, cracking them. One of those things. Obviously, you don't want to do any damage to the light just to convert it back. So, what my game plan here is you see, I got the light socket out. I'm essentially going to be attempting to make a light bulb that will run off this original light socket, like the original light bulb did, using these various parts right here and a small piece of wood. Essentially what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be trying to make this lower section right here where you have this quarter turn, these little wings right here, plus the base right here. And then obviously I'm going to make sure that when the light is all screwed into the socket, from this flange right here to the filament is going to be the same, with the filament on the bulb. So this way it lines up with the lens on the, lines up with the lens properly. Sorry, I could talk for a second there. Essentially what my game plan is I'm going to essentially be using this right here for the quarter turn portion, a small piece of wood, a bolt with a hole in it, and then a few pieces of wire, and essentially create a light bulb that I can literally go and lock in here, and it'll work off the original socket. And if I want to convert it back, I pull this out, put that one back in, and it's a done deal. So let's go ahead and start and see if I can make this work. So wish me luck. All right, to kind of show what I'm doing right here is, see, I got the block of wood right here. I just took a hole saw, cut a block of wood, and then I end up taking my drill bit. When I stuck my drill bit inside here, I end up spinning it on top of a piece of sandpaper until I got the dimension I need for it to fit down inside here. Then after that, I took this piece right here is actually one of those pieces, it's extra long. It's the part that goes across an electrical box that you run your screws into for, like, if you're hanging in like a light fixture or something like that. And then in the center hole here was actually threaded for this hollow piece of all thread that I have right here. I have the nut on them, so this way I can lock them in place so I ain't got to worry about it moving or turning or anything like that. Drilled my own holes into it. That's so I can anchor to the block of wood here. The next step is going to be to put the light socket on here, run the one wire through the hollow portion here, through the wood. As you can see, I don't know if you can see it really well on the camera, but this piece of metal is really only going in, about maybe a 1/4 inch at the max. So this way I don't have no chance of my little bolt that I'll be cutting and drilling a hole in, stay right here on the bottom. So the wire will come through there. That'll be my contact for the bottom. That would almost be kind of like the bottom of the light bulb, like this point right here. And then the other wire, when it comes off, either I'll go right to the light socket if I can, because I'll be able to run the electrical current will float through this anyways, or I might just take and just run the wire and put it between the block of wood and this right here. So this way it's right on that metal connector right here, because that metal connector is what's going to be right against the socket anyway. So that's probably going to be my best point of contact for the current anyways. So that's probably what I'm going to be doing. So I just want to give a quick rundown of what essentially how I'm making essentially this particular portion. The next step is just to kind of put it together. All right, now for the assembly process. Essentially, you can see I already got my 2 wires on here. I got my main wire. This is the wire that's going to go through the hollow portion of here. And then the other wire is the one that's going to go to the metal portion that's going to be touching the light socket itself. Now, the little sockets that I get here are the kind that have like the little part right here where it's threaded. So I get threaded onto here. And the reason for the lock nuts is you want to make sure that when everything's all locked in place and you go and put it in your socket and you turn it, you don't want to be turning the socket itself, this portion. Or say you're trying to take it out and this thing reaches its end, where you're supposed to be pulling up, you don't want to be spinning the socket again, kind of thing. So that's the reason for the lock nuts. Now, I already kind of did a little measuring by just kind of holding this up here and seeing exactly how far I needed to cut my sheeting back. I wanted the sheeting to be just far enough back so it helps with this piece right here, as you can see. But you don't want it so far back that there's a possible chance that any of this bare wire could be touching this right here, because then it's going to short out. And then you also want to make sure this is really short, because you don't want any chance of this potentially touching this and causing a short. But with how big this is, there's more than enough insulation here that you won't get any kind of shorts or anything like that. So what I'm doing is I'm just gonna slide that together, let the wire come out the bottom, but screw that on where I just see the threads. All right, let me go ahead and lock that in place. There we go. And then this right here, I'm just going to bend this over. Now this will be epoxied in after I know everything's going to work. I don't want to epoxy it before, because what's going to happen is if I were to epoxy this first, let's say I got to take it back apart, it's going to be really hard to try to get that wire snake back through that little hole right there. So it's just best to wait till you're ready, put some epoxy in there, then slide this over top of it. And now I done messed up my wires a little bit here. And then slide this over right in there, right into the epoxy, bend this over, let that dry, and then put it in the light. And then for the other one, all I'm doing is I just stick it up underneath the metal piece right here, so I get a nice good contact with that metal. Just Phillips, tighten the 2 screws that I put into the wood. And there we go. And the reason for the glove is because just in case I don't want to accidentally touch one of these wires on the socket and get myself a nice little zap. But it just goes right in. And there we go. I got a modified light bulb that goes right into the factory socket. So if I want to take it out, I can pull that out and I can put this one in, which I'm not going to, because that's I don't want to damage that. But pretty much, now I just got to build a second one. Put this back inside the light, hook up my flasher, put the filters in, done. All right, so I got them both fully assembled. They're both put together the same exact way, as far as the way the wiring and everything is all done. I still got to do the epoxy on that, but I want to make sure that everything works before I fully epoxy that, because once I epoxy that in and all that stuff, it's going to be a little harder to snake that wire back through there. So I'm going to make sure it works first before I go that far. So let me go ahead and get that socket put back in the light, get it fully wired up to where it's supposed to be, put these in, and let's see what happens. All right, so I figured before I put the filters in it, and before I put that epoxy on this bottom piece, I went ahead and got both sockets are in, wired up. So let's see how this works. There's one. And 2. There we go. So the next step is I'll put the filters in it. Once I get the filters in it, then I will get those bottom pieces epoxy, so I know they're not going to move or shift or anything like that. put the top cap on, and I'm all done. All right, so after I went ahead and put the filters back in, I sat back and looked at it, and it seemed really dim. And I think it's because the fact that this has the red on this. So between the red LED, which is obviously going to be lower brightness essentially than if it was clear, then you got the tint that's on the glass, and you got the tint that's on the filter that's in the tower light itself. So there's a lot going on here. It's almost like putting multiple shades of sunglasses on. So I went through my Halloween stuff. I found these right here. They're still a red LED bulb, but they have the clear on them. So essentially all I'm doing is I'm just taking one layer of tinting out of the equation here. So hopefully it'll brighten it back up a little bit. So I'll just save these from Halloween time. Another reason I went this route is I kind of wanted to show how, which is a few items from Home Depot, a little bit of time and a small piece of wood, you can essentially create a light bulb to go inside your tower light. So if you happen to have one of these tower lights and either the bulbs are missing, they're burnt out, whatever, you want to turn this thing on, enjoy it, have it out in your man cave or out by your pool or something like that. This is a really inexpensive, easy way to generate a light bulb that'll work in there. And I know there might be definitely some concerns about this wood right here, but being that this is a very low wattage bulb, it's LED, it takes very little to run. I have mine on a flash where it's just going to be flashing all the time. This right here, it's not going to generate a problem. This is not going to catch on fire. This isn't going to heat up. This isn't going to be something that's going to be an issue. Now, if I was running like 100, 120, 150 watt incandescent bulb on here, then yes, this would definitely probably most likely be a no-go, especially, you know, the lighter weight lamp style wire would just be a no-go for that. But for this particular scenario, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to affect anything. It's going to work out just fine. The other thing I forgot to mention in the video is in order to do something like this, you're going to have your light socket out if at all possible, because you really got to know exactly how tall this needs to be, how big in diameter it needs to be, how wide these ears need to be to lock in there, and obviously make sure all that stuff right there, you know, touches and makes all the proper contact. So if you can get your socket out, it would be best. If you can't, it can be done inside. It would just be a little bit harder. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna put these lights inside the unit, put it up on the shelf, and let's see how it looks all together. Okay, so here we go. We got them both back up on the shelf, got them hooked up. I got them both hooked to different flashers, so this way they don't blink at the exact same time, which would be fairly normal to see out in the wild, I guess you can say. Now, if obviously if these were, like, say on the same tower, they're all going to be hooked to the same unit, so yeah, they would flash together. But individual beacons usually don't necessarily flash at the same rate, so I think it gives it a little bit better look to it with them blinking at a different rate time. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the lights out real fast and kind of show you what it looks like with the shop dark. All right, here we go. Lights are up on the shelf, all lit up. They're definitely kind of pretty bright. Definitely not like 620 watt bulb bright, but I also don't want it blinding me anyways. So, but overall, I think that came out pretty good. I do like the fact that I was able to find a way to build essentially those custom light bulbs to where I didn't actually modify that tower light in any manner. I didn't change it. I didn't just add weird things to it. So it's still all original, just like it was to begin with. All I did was I just made custom light bulbs for it. So if I ever wanted to take this back out, like say I'm going to sell the light and the new people don't want those in there, I can just pull them out, put the original bulbs back in there, and you would never know I did anything to it. So I really like that aspect of it. So just say I'm going to show a quick picture of the actual flasher I'm using, just in case somebody wants to pick up one of those flashers for theirs. And I hope you all enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.